The Mafia boss never wanted a wife, not until he saw her photo. One picture. One runaway daughter under a Charleston streetlight. One quiet order that changed both of their lives. Bring her to me. Avery Monroe thought distance could save her. She thought if she left Boston, changed her phone, and disappeared into the warm southern dark, her father's world couldn't reach her anymore. But some families don't let go. Some men call it protection when it's really control. And some love stories begin with a lie so dangerous it should have ended everything. Tonight, this is not just a mafia romance. It's a story about fear, freedom, betrayal, and the kind of love that forces a woman to ask, am I running from danger or from the only place I ever felt safe? Stay until the end. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. And while that order was already moving through the dark, Avery Monroe was still trying to believe she had outrun the life that raised her. Charleston received her with warm rain, low clouds, and streets that smelled like wet stone magnolia and salt from the harbor. She stepped out of the rideshare just after midnight with one suitcase, one backpack, and one burner phone tucked deep inside her coat pocket. The house in front of her sat above a narrow street lined with black iron balconies and sleepy porch lights. It looked harmless. That was what Avery needed it to be. Harper Ellis opened the door before Avery even finished knocking. For 1 second, neither of them spoke. Then Harper pulled her inside and locked the door behind her. Avery stood in the little entryway with rain in her hair and her fingers still wrapped around the suitcase handle. She had spent the last 2 days in motion, from Boston to Atlanta, from Atlanta to a bus station outside Savannah, then finally to Charleston in a car whose driver kept asking if she was visiting family. She had smiled every time and said yes because lies were easier when they were small. Harper took one look at her face and softened. O Avenue. That was all it took. Avery's shoulders folded inward like her body had been waiting for permission to fall apart. Harper caught her before she could sink to the floor. The suitcase tipped over beside them. The wheels spun once against the wood, then stopped. For a long time, there was only the sound of rain tapping the windows and Avery trying to breathe through whatever had finally broken loose inside her. Harper did not ask questions right away. That was why Avery had come to her. She made tea, neither of them drank. She found a towel. She pushed a blanket around Avery's shoulders and sat across from her at the small kitchen table, barefoot hair tied in a messy knot, eyes sharp with worry. Avery stared at the steam rising from the mug. My father called me 3 nights ago. Harper went still. Avery had told her pieces over the years. Not enough to make sense of everything. Enough for Harper to understand that the word father did not land gently. He told me I needed to come home to Boston, Avery said. No explanation. Just that tone he uses when the world has already agreed with him. Harper's jaw tightened. And when I asked why, Avery gave a small laugh. It sounded nothing like humor. He said I was getting married. The rain became louder for a moment. Or maybe the room became quieter around it. Harper leaned forward slowly. To who? I don't know. You don't know? He didn't tell me his name. Avery looked up then. Her eyes were red, but her voice had gone calm in that dangerous way calm becomes when a person has run out of room for panic. My father arranged my life like a business meeting and forgot to include the subject. Harper covered her mouth with one hand. That cannot be real. It's real in his world. Avery stood and walked to the window. The street below shone black under the rain. A car moved past slowly, tires whispering over the pavement. She watched until it disappeared. In Boston, the Monroe name opens doors people pretend are walls. My father built that. He built it with money, fear, favors, and blood. No one ever talks about at dinner. She pressed 2 fingers to the glass. When I was 14, my mother sent me away to school. She told everyone it was for my education. It wasn't. She was putting distance between me and him. Harper's face softened. You never said it like that before. I didn't know how. Avery turned back. Or maybe I knew if I said it out loud I'd have to admit I was still scared. Harper got up and crossed the kitchen. She took Avery's hand. You can stay here as long as you need. Avery squeezed once, then let go. He'll look. Let him look. He'll send people. Then we stay smart. Avery almost smiled, almost. I changed phones. Paid cash. Left my real cards in San Francisco. I took a bus for part of it just to make the trail ugly. Good. My mother left me an account. Avery swallowed. Private. Untouched. I used to think it was dramatic, like one of those warnings mothers give because they worry too much. What did she say? Avery looked toward the rain again. Always keep something no man knows about. Not because you plan to run, because one day you may need to choose. Harper did not speak for a moment. Then she said very softly, "Your mom knew." Avery closed her eyes. Yes. Across the street, beneath the shadow of a closed antique shop, a man sat inside a parked sedan with the engine off. Rain ran in thin lines down the windshield. He had been there for 20 minutes, long enough to watch the second-floor light come on, long enough to see the outline of two women pass behind the curtains. He lifted his phone and sent a message. "She is inside." Friend confirmed. 3 states away. Roman Maddox read the message in the back seat of a black car idling outside a private airfield. He did not smile. He looked at the photo again. Avery, under the Charleston streetlight paper grocery bag, and her arms, hair loose around her face. One shoulder turned like she had sensed the lens without seeing it. The driver asked if they were going to the hotel. Roman slid the phone into his jacket. Number. The driver waited. Roman looked out at the wet runway. "Take me into the city." For 6 days, Avery lived inside Harper's apartment like a ghost that knew how to code. She set up her laptop at the kitchen table and applied for every cybersecurity job within 50 miles. She checked her burner phone every hour. She kept the curtains half closed. She memorized the sounds of the building, the old pipes, the neighbor's dog, the delivery guy who knocked too loudly on the wrong door every afternoon. By the 3rd day, she had reorganized Harper's pantry. By the 4th, she had labeled the spice jars. By the 5th, Harper found her sorting batteries by expiration date. "No," Harper said from the doorway. Avery looked up. "No, what?" "No to whatever survival spiral this is. I'm being useful. You alphabetized my T. It was chaos. It was T." Avery went back to the drawer. Harper crossed the room and closed it with her hip. "We are going out tonight." Avery stared at her. "Absolutely not." "Absolutely yes." "Harper, you have not seen anything but this apartment and the corner grocery in almost a week. You flinch when a truck parks outside. You refresh your email like your inbox is going to rescue you." Harper pointed toward the bedroom. "Put on something that is not gray and haunted." "I'm not in the mood." "You don't need a mood, you need noise." Avery opened her mouth, but Harper lifted a finger. "And before you tell me, it is dangerous. Everything is dangerous right now. At least, this version has music." That was how Avery ended up in a waterfront lounge near the marina, wearing a black slip dress borrowed from Harper and a jacket she refused to take off. The place was all amber light, low ceilings, polished wood, and windows that looked out toward a dark water. A singer in the corner dragged her voice through an old blues song, while the crowd moved around their small tables with the warm looseness of people who had chosen pleasure and were not apologizing for it. Avery stood at the bar and tried to remember what normal looked like. Harper ordered 2 drinks and leaned close. "Breathe." "I am breathing." "You are doing something with your lungs. I'm not sure it qualifies." Avery took the glass Harper handed her. The first sip burned. She welcomed it. For a while it worked. The music filled the spaces her thoughts kept trying to enter. Harper pulled her into a corner near the window and made her laugh about old college stories, terrible professors. The one time Avery had accidentally locked an entire lab out of its own server because she was too impatient to wait for admin approval. "You were a menace," Harper said. "I was efficient. You made a grown man say please to a printer." He was emotionally attached to outdated hardware. Harper laughed so hard she had to put her drink down. Avery felt the sound move through her, and for one fragile moment the fear loosened. Then a man slid into the space beside her at the bar. He was young, expensive, handsome in the practiced way of men who had been rewarded for it too early. His smile arrived before he did. "You're new." Avery kept her eyes on her glass. "I'm not interested." "That's a fast answer." "I like saving time." He laughed as if she had flirted. Harper had stepped away to take a call from work. Avery clocked the exits automatically. Front door, side hallway, patio, 2 bartenders. One security guard near the entrance distracted by a group of men in suits. The man leaned closer. "I just want to talk." And I just answered. His hand came to the bar beside hers close enough for his fingers to brush her wrist. Avery moved her hand away. His smile thinned. "You always this rude." She turned then, ready to make the scene she had been trying to avoid. A voice cut in from her left. She said no. Quiet, flat. Not loud enough to turn the room, but sharp enough to stop the man cold. Avery looked over. The man beside her was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a white shirt open at the collar, and dark trousers that looked tailored without trying to announce it. His sleeves were rolled to his forearms. One hand rested loosely on the bar. The other held a short glass of bourbon. He was not looking at Avery. He was looking at the man who had touched her. There was no obvious threat in his posture. That made it worse. He looked like a man who did not need to make threats because people around him already understood the cost of ignoring them. The younger man lifted both hands. "Relax, we were talking." "No," the stranger said. "You were leaving." A beat passed. Then the man left. Avery watched him vanish into the crowd before she turned back. "Thank you." The stranger took a sip of bourbon. "You had it handled." "Then why step in?" His eyes moved to hers for the first time. Dark gray-green. Cool at first glance. Warmer if you made the mistake of looking too long. Because he didn't. Avery did not know what to do with that. He turned back to the bar. No line, no smile. No attempt to turn gratitude into invitation. That made him more dangerous than if he had tried. The bartender set another bourbon in front of him. He reached for it. Avery noticed the scent then, cutting through liquor perfume and old wood. Cedar. Cold citrus. Sea salt. She hated that she noticed. "You from Charleston?" she asked. He glanced at her. "Sometimes." "That is not an answer. It's the only one I have tonight." Her mouth twitched despite herself. "I'm Avery." He looked at her hand when she offered it. Not dismissive. Just considering. Then he took it. His palm was warm. His grip steady. He released her before the contact became too much or not enough. "Cole. Just Cole. For tonight. Do you always answer like you're being questioned by Congress?" That almost got a smile out of him, almost. "Do you always ask like you already know the lie?" Avery's breath caught softly. Not enough for him to hear, she hoped. But his eyes stayed on her face a second too long. Harper returned then, phone in hand, slowing as she took in the man beside Avery. Avery stepped back. "Thanks again." Cole gave one small nod, picked up his glass, and walked away. The crowd seemed to adjust around him. No one bumped his shoulder. No one stepped into his path. He moved toward a private table near the back where 2 men waited, and a woman in green tried to catch his attention. He did not look back until he sat down. Then he did. Avery looked away first. Harper leaned close. "Please tell me that is the man who saved you from the handsy finance prince." "He didn't save me." "Right." He just made the room remember manners. Avery took another drink. Harper followed her gaze to the back table. "Who is he?" "Cole." "Cole what?" "Apparently that costs extra." Harper studied him for a moment. "That man has either ruined lives or signed checks large enough to do it politely. Helpful. I'm serious. He has dangerous furniture energy." Avery laughed before she could stop herself. Across the room, Cole watched her laugh. His face did not change, but his fingers stilled around his glass. The next morning, Harper insisted on the beach. Avery argued for 20 minutes and lost all 20. By noon, they were stretched out on a quiet stretch of sand north of the main crowd, where the water rolled in blue and silver under a hot, clean sky. Harper had brought a ridiculous straw hat, 3 kinds of sunscreen, and a speaker playing music low enough not to offend strangers. Avery lay on her back and let the sun warm her closed eyelids. For the first time since Boston, her body felt like it belonged to her, not her father's, not a family's, not some man's name in a contract, just hers. Harper sat up and waved toward a group of women farther down the beach. I know them from work. I'm saying hi. Avery lifted one hand without opening her eyes. Don't get recruited into a beach volleyball league. No promises. When Harper left, Avery got up and walked toward the water. The ocean was cool at first, then welcoming. She moved through the shallows and dove under the first clean break of a wave. Salt water closed over her head. For a few seconds there was no father, no arranged marriage, no men watching from dark cars, only pressure rhythm breath. She had been a strong swimmer once. Before boarding school, before constant caution became a second skin. Her body remembered. She moved farther out past the easy swimmers, past the children laughing near the sandbar. The shore became smaller behind her. Avery turned to float on her back and looked up at the sky. She almost smiled. Then the water changed. At first, it was just a pull against her legs. Then a hard, sideways drag. She kicked, corrected, and felt the current take her anyway. The shoreline shifted wrong. The distance widened. Avery rolled onto her stomach and swam toward the beach. The current did not care. Her breathing sharpened. She forced herself not to panic. Swim parallel. Find the edge. Do not fight the whole ocean. She knew the rules. Her body did not obey them fast enough. A wave broke over her mouth. She swallowed, salt water coughed, lost rhythm. Her arms grew heavy with sudden, stupid speed. Then she heard an engine. A wooden speedboat cut across the water, turning cleanly toward her. Sun flashed against the windshield. The bow dropped as the boat slowed beside her. An arm reached down. "Give me your hand." She knew that voice. Avery grabbed him. Cole pulled her out of the water like she weighed nothing. She landed hard against the deck, coughing hair in her face, lungs burning. For a few seconds she could not do anything but breathe. Cole crouched beside her, one hand at her back. "Easy." She coughed again. He handed her a towel. "You always run toward danger, or was today special?" Avery glared at him over the towel. "You always appear out of nowhere, only when someone makes it necessary." She tried to sit up too fast. The world tilted. His hand came to her shoulder, firm enough to stop her, careful enough not to scare her. Slow. "I'm fine." "You're shaking." "I'm angry." At the ocean. At your tone. That time he did smile. Briefly. It changed his face in a way Avery wished she had not seen. He sat back near the helm, still watching her. "Rip current. You were handling it until you swallowed water. I know how to swim." "I noticed." She pulled the towel tighter around herself. The boat rocked gently beneath them. The shoreline sat at a distance, bright with umbrellas and movement. Harper was somewhere on that beach, probably losing her mind. Avery pushed damp hair out of her face. "What were you doing out here?" "Boating." "That is suspiciously convenient. Most rescues are from the rescued person's perspective." She narrowed her eyes. "You practice sounding impossible, don't you?" "Number. So it's natural." He leaned back, looking almost amused. "What were you doing that far out?" Trying to remember what freedom felt like. The sentence came out before she could stop it. Cole did not answer right away. The quiet stretched, but not awkwardly. He let the words exist without grabbing them. Finally he said, and Avery looked toward shore. "It has a strong current." His eyes stayed on her profile. "That it does." He started the boat and turned it toward the marina, not the crowded beach. Avery noticed. "My friend is on the beach. I know." She looked at him quickly. He nodded toward the shoreline. "She's the one in the straw hat waving both arms like she's signaling aircraft." Avery followed his gaze. Harper was indeed near the waterline, frantic. Avery almost laughed, then coughed again. Cole slowed the boat near the shallows. Harper splashed toward them before he dropped anchor. Avery Monroe. "I swear on everything." Holy, I looked away for 10 minutes. "I'm okay." "You were in a boat with a stranger." Cole stepped into the water, waist deep, holding the side steady. Avery looked down at him. "Technically, we've met." Harper stared at Cole, then Avery, then Cole again. "Oh." Avery caught the tone and pointed at her. Don't. Harper lifted her hands. I said nothing. Cole held out his hand to Avery. She hesitated only long enough to pretend she had a choice, then took it. He lifted her down into the water. His hand settled briefly at her waist to steady her. The contact was clean, practical gone almost immediately. Still, Avery felt it after he let go. On the sand, Harper wrapped her in another towel and whispered, "That is the same man." Yes. The lounge man. Yes. The man with dangerous furniture energy. Harper. He pulled you out of the ocean. I was there. Cole stood near the boat water, moving around his legs, watching them with that unreadable face. Harper lowered her voice. He looks at you like he already knows something. Avery looked back at him. Cole did not look away. That evening, Avery found herself thinking about him while pretending not to. She sat at Harper's kitchen table laptop, open hair still damp from her second shower job listings glowing on the screen. Harper cooked pasta and hummed under her breath. The apartment smelled like garlic basil and rain coming in through the cracked window. A message appeared on Avery's burner phone. No name. Dinner tonight, 7:30. I'll pick you up. Avery stared at it. Harper looked over from the stove. Your face just did something. No, it didn't. It absolutely did. Avery turned the phone around. Harper read it, then pressed both hands to her chest. Oh good, the ocean man has initiative. I didn't give him my number. Harper's smile faded slightly. That is less cute. Avery looked at the phone again. Another message arrived. Harper gave it to me after I promised not to be a serial killer. Avery lifted her eyes slowly. Harper turned back to the stove with exaggerated focus. You gave him my number. He asked politely. So did Ted Bundy probably. He also saved your life. That is not a dating credential. It's at least a reference. Avery should have said no. She knew that. She also knew she had spent her whole life making the safest choice in every room, and somehow she still ended up being treated like property by the one man who was supposed to protect her. So, at 7:30 she went downstairs in a blue dress Harper swore made her look like a woman who had never alphabetized tea. Cole waited beside a dark Range Rover under the glow of the street lamp. When he saw her, he went still. Not dramatically. Not like a man performing admiration. Just still. Avery felt heat rise in her cheeks and hated herself for it. He opened the passenger door. You look beautiful. Simple, certain, like a fact. Thank you. She got in before her face gave her away. The restaurant sat near the water, tucked behind an old brick building with no sign out front. Inside, it was candlelit and quiet with white tablecloths and windows open to the harbor breeze. Cole ordered like a man, known by the staff. Avery noticed but did not ask. For the first 10 minutes, conversation stayed safe. Charleston. Weather. Food. The absurdity of Harper's straw hat. Then Cole asked, "What do you do when you're not nearly drowning?" Avery set down her fork. "Cybersecurity." His brows lifted slightly. "Interesting. Most people say complicated. Most people are intimidated by things they can't see." She studied him. "That sounds like experience." "Maybe. I build security architecture," she said. "Mostly human error vulnerabilities. Weak passwords. Bad permissions. People clicking links because they're tired or lonely or curious. People are always the breach." "Exactly." Cole leaned back, eyes on her. "And you like finding the weakness before someone else does." Avery looked down at her wine. "I like knowing where the danger can get in." The words settled between them. Cole's voice softened just slightly. "Does that come from work, Avery?" She knew what he was really asking. Her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. "I don't like talking about my family." "Then we won't. No pressure, no disappointment. No wounded male ego demanding access because he had listened for 20 minutes. Just acceptance." Avery looked at him, then really looked. "You're strange." "Am I?" "You don't push." Cole's gaze moved over her face. "I know what it looks like when someone is holding a door shut from the inside." That landed too close. Avery swallowed. "What about you? What about me? What do you do when you're not rescuing inconvenient women from water?" His mouth moved faintly. "Family business." "What kind?" "Shipping, security, property." Sounds broad. It is. Sounds expensive. It can be. Sounds like you're leaving things out. His eyes held hers. I am. The honesty should have made her get up. Instead, it made something inside her lean closer. After dinner, they walked along the harbor. The night air was soft, heavy with salt and distant music from another bar. Boats rocked against their lines. Avery's heels clicked against the wooden pier. Cole walked beside her, not touching her. That made her more aware of him than if he had. Finally, she said, "You ask questions like you care about the answer. Then you answer mine like you're avoiding a deposition." He looked out at the water. Some answers changed the room. Maybe the room should change. He turned his head. Maybe. Avery stopped walking. The harbor lights reflected in his eyes. For a moment, he looked less like a stranger and more like a problem her body had already chosen before her mind finished objecting. "I should go home," she said. "You should." Neither of them moved. Cole's hand lifted slowly, giving her every second to stop him. His fingers touched a strand of hair near her cheek, then let it fall. Avery forgot the sentence she had been forming. His voice dropped. "I have a house near the water. The view is better than this." That is a line. Yes, at least you admit it. It's still true. She looked at him. "I don't know you." Number. "I don't even know if Cole is your real name." His eyes stayed on hers. "It is real enough for tonight." There it was again. The warning, the gap, the place where safety should have stepped in and taken control. Avery heard her mother's voice. Choose. She heard her father's, "Come home." She heard her own fear familiar and exhausted. Then she said, "Just the view." Cole nodded once. Just the view. His house sat where the marsh met the water, all glass-dark wood and low light. It should have felt cold. It did not. The rooms smelled faintly of cedar citrus and the sea. Avery stepped through the sliding door onto the back terrace and stopped. The water stretched out black and silver beneath the moon. Tall grass moved in the wind. A dock reached into the dark where the same wooden speedboat rocked softly against its ropes. Cole came out carrying 2 glasses. She took one and sniffed. Not wine. Sparkling water. Lime. She looked at him. A gentleman doesn't get a woman drunk in his house. The line surprised a laugh out of her. Very gentlemanly. I try when supervised. She sat on the outdoor sofa. He sat beside her close enough that the heat of him reached her far enough that the choice remained hers. For a while they watched the water. Then Avery said, "I don't have much experience with this." "With what?" She let out a breath. "Men. Dating. Being alone with someone and not knowing exactly what they want from me." Cole turned his glass slowly in his hand. "What do you think I want?" She looked at him. "I don't know. That's the problem." He set the glass down. "I want to know what makes you look at exits before you sit down. I want to know why you talk about security like it's a religion. I want to know why a woman as smart as you thinks freedom has to mean being alone." Avery's throat tightened. "That's a lot." "I know. And if I don't want to answer, then don't." She stared at him. "You make it very hard to dislike you." "That sounds inconvenient." "It is." He leaned closer slowly enough to make the space between them ache. Avery met him halfway. The kiss was soft at first. Careful. Almost a question. Then his hand came to her jaw and something in her that had been locked for years opened so fast it frightened her. She pulled back first. Her breathing had changed. Cole did not chase her mouth. He rested his forehead near hers, not touching. "You're safe." The words hit some hidden place she had not meant to show him. She closed her eyes. "I don't know what that means anymore." His hand moved to the back of her head, fingers gentle in her hair. "Then stay until it does." She should have gone home. Instead, later she lay beside him in the dark, fully clothed, beneath a soft blanket, the glass wall showing the water beyond. He lay on his back, one arm under his head, not touching her. Avery turned toward him. "You're really not going to try anything?" "Number." "Why?" His answer came quietly, because trust given too fast usually breaks. She watched his profile in the dark. "My father is dangerous." Cole did not move. "I figured. If he finds me, anyone near me could get hurt. Then I'll stand closer." Avery let out a fragile laugh. "That is not a reasonable answer." Number. But you said it like one. His head turned toward her. In the dark, his eyes looked almost black. Sleep, Avery. Somehow she did. No nightmares. No waking to check locks. No dreams of Boston doors closing behind her. Just the sound of water against the dock and the steady breathing of a man she did not understand. Morning came warm and gold through the glass. Avery woke to an empty space beside her and the smell of coffee. For a second, she did not remember where she was. Then she did all at once and pressed both hands over her face. She had slept in a stranger's house. A dangerously calm, suspiciously wealthy, impossibly attractive stranger's house. Fully clothed, yes. Still. She sat up. Cole came in carrying 2 mugs hair damp from a shower-white t-shirt clinging lightly to his shoulders. Morning. Her voice came out softer than planned. Morning. He handed her coffee. I made breakfast. Of course you did. His mouth curved. You sound offended. I'm suspicious of competent men before 9. Healthy instinct. They ate on the terrace. Eggs, fruit toast coffee strong enough to make her blink. For a little while, Avery let herself pretend this was a life a person could step into. Water. Sunlight. A man moving through the kitchen like he knew how to take care of things without making a speech about it. Then Cole's phone rang. His face changed before he answered. Not much. Enough. He stepped away toward the glass doors. Avery watched his reflection as he listened. Get it ready, he said. A pause. Everything we need. Another pause. 2 hours. He ended the call and turned back with the same calm expression. But the morning had shifted. Avery set down her coffee. Everything okay? Yes. She studied him. He crossed the terrace and held out his hand. I need to take you somewhere. Where? His hand stayed open between them. Home. Avery did not take it. Cole. For the first time since she had met him, he looked almost sorry. Almost. Then his phone vibrated again on the table. Avery saw only 2 words on the lit screen before he picked it up. Jet ready. The words stayed on the glowing screen for less than a second before Cole turned the phone over, but Avery had already seen them. A cold little space opened beneath her ribs. The terrace was still beautiful. The water still moved in quiet silver lines below the dock. The coffee still steamed beside her plate. But everything had shifted half an inch to the left, just enough to make the world feel staged. Avery looked at his open hand. Home, she repeated. Cole did not move closer. Come with me. My home or yours. His silence answered first. Avery stood slowly, the chair scraping softly against the stone. Her pulse had begun to pick up, not loud yet, but steady. She reached for her phone on the table. Cole's eyes dropped to the movement. She noticed. Her fingers closed around it anyway. I need to call Harper. You can call her from the car. No. Avery slipped the phone into her pocket. I'll call her now. Cole's expression did not change, but something in the air around him hardened. Avery. The way he said her name was low and careful. It should have calmed her. Instead, it made every instinct she had sharpen. Who are you? His eyes held hers. You know me. No, I know the version who drinks bourbon, saves women from rip currents, and answers questions like, every truth has a price. Her voice stayed even, but her hands were cold. I'm asking who you are. He looked toward the water once as if the answer might be waiting there. Then he said, my full name is Roman Cole Maddox. Avery did not blink. For a moment, there was no sound but the water under the dock. Roman Cole Maddox. The name moved through her like a blade turning slowly. Chicago. Shipping. Security. Old blood. New money. The Maddox family. The man her father had chosen before she ever knew there was a choice to lose. Her throat tightened, but her voice came out flat. You. Roman watched her carefully. Yes. She took one step back. You were the man. Avery. You were the man my father arranged for me to marry. His jaw shifted once. Yes. The word hit harder than any explanation could have. She laughed, once small and empty, then looked around the terrace as if the furniture had betrayed her too. The water, the breakfast, the soft blanket from last night, the coffee he had placed in her hands. All of it rearranged itself into evidence. How long did you know? Roman did not answer fast enough. Avery nodded. Before the lounge. His silence became a confession. Her eyes burned. She hated that. She hated him for being here to see it. You knew who I was when you touched me. I knew your name. You knew my father was hunting me. Yes, you knew I was running from you. Roman stepped forward. I knew you were running from a life you never chose. That life had your name attached to it. He stopped. Avery's voice cracked then just slightly, and she hated that too. You slept beside me. I didn't take anything from you. You took the truth. He looked struck by that. Not dramatically. Roman Maddox did not perform pain. It passed behind his eyes and disappeared somewhere deeper. I was going to tell you. When before or after the jet, his phone vibrated again on the table. Neither of them looked at it. Avery backed toward the glass doors. I'm leaving. Number. The word was quiet, absolute. Her mouth parted. Number. Roman's eyes stayed on her face. You're not safe in Charleston. I was not safe because you were watching me. Your father had men looking too. Then let them find me. At least I know what kind of monster he is. That landed. For the first time, anger moved through Roman's expression. You think that makes him safer? I think you don't get to decide where I go. I decided when I saw the risk around you. No, she pointed at him with a trembling hand. You decided when you saw a photo and thought I was something you could collect. His face went still. Avery saw the truth of the sentence land. Maybe not all of it. Enough. He moved toward the door. There is a car outside. I'm not getting in it. You are. Try making me. He turned back then, and the man standing in the morning light was not Cole from the lounge, not the quiet stranger who had handed her sparkling water, not the patient body beside hers in the dark. This was Roman Maddox. His voice lowered. If I have to choose between your anger and your safety, I will live with your anger. Avery stared at him. You sound exactly like my father. For 1 second, Roman looked like she had slapped him. Then the mask came down. He walked past her, opened the glass door, and called to someone inside. A man in a dark suit appeared at once. Avery's stomach dropped. Of course, there were men. Of course, there had always been men. Roman looked at her again. You can walk to the car with me, or he can carry your bag, and I can carry you. I'd rather not make this worse. Avery's laugh came out wet and sharp. You already did. She walked ahead of him because she refused to be dragged. She did not look back at the house. She did not give herself one last glance at the terrace where she had almost believed in safety. Outside, a black SUV waited beneath the live oaks. The driver opened the door. Avery stopped beside it. My things. Taken care of. My suitcase is at Harper's. Already collected. Her head turned slowly. You went into Harper's apartment. My people did. She knows you're going to Chicago. Avery looked at him as if she had never seen him before. You took my life apart while I was sleeping. Roman's voice remained controlled, but the edge under it showed. I put it within reach. No, you put it within yours. She climbed into the SUV before he could touch her. Roman got in beside her. The privacy partition slid up before the car moved. Avery sat close to the door, both hands folded tightly in her lap. The city passed in fragments outside the tinted window. Bright porches, moss in the trees, sun on brick. Charleston had looked soft yesterday. Now it looked like a place she had only borrowed. Roman tried once. Avery, don't. I did not come to Charleston intending to make you care about me. She kept her eyes on the window. That must be very comforting for you. His hands rested on his knees, still and open. I came to see whether this arrangement had any value beyond business. Your father offered you like a contract. I wanted to know the woman before I agreed to anything. And lying was your research method. I used my middle name. She turned then. That is the defense you want to go with. He looked away first, and some small furious part of her was glad. The private terminal sat at the edge of the airport, clean and silent, surrounded by fencing and men who moved as if they had already memorized every possible threat. A jet waited on the tarmac white against the hard blue morning. Avery got out before Roman could open her door. He followed. Her phone was still in her pocket. She reached for it as they crossed the pavement. Roman's hand closed over hers. Not rough, not painful, still a restraint. You can have it back after we land. Her body went cold. You cannot be serious. I need to know who you call. You need to know everything, don't you? He held her gaze. Right now, yes. Avery pulled her hand free, but he had already taken the phone. He slipped it inside his jacket. The betrayal was so intimate she nearly lost her breath. You are worse than him. Roman's face did not change, but his eyes did. I hope you don't believe that. I hope you remember I said it. Inside the jet, 2 flight attendants greeted Roman by name. Good morning, Mr. Maddox. Avery walked past the wide leather seats near the front and sat alone near the back. She buckled herself in, turned toward the window, and folded her arms. Roman remained standing for a moment. If you need anything, ask the crew. She did not answer. Avery. She looked at him then. Cole is dead. Don't use his voice with me. Roman's jaw tightened. Then he walked to the front and sat down. The jet rolled forward. Charleston slipped away beneath them, roofs and water and marshland shrinking into patterns. Avery watched until the coast disappeared under cloud. Somewhere above Tennessee, a flight attendant asked if she wanted lunch. Avery said no. Somewhere above Missouri, Roman came back and stood in the aisle. You haven't eaten. She kept her eyes closed. I'm not hungry. You should drink water. Do you plan to monitor that too? Silence. Then the soft sound of a glass being placed on the table beside her. He left without another word. She did not touch it for 20 minutes. Then she drank all of it. She hated him for knowing she would. By the time the jet landed in Chicago, the sky had gone the color of steel. Wind hit hard as Avery stepped onto the tarmac. It smelled different from Charleston. Colder. Sharper. Smoke Lake, air jet fuel, distant rain. 2 cars waited. Roman guided her toward the first one without touching her. She noticed that. She wished she had not. The drive to the Maddox estate took them away from the city lights and into a neighborhood of iron gates, old trees, and houses set far back from the road. The estate rose at the end of a long drive, stone and glass and black metal. Beautiful in the way a fortress can be beautiful if you are not the one locked inside it. Avery looked at the house. This is where I'm supposed to feel safe. Roman answered quietly. This is where no one reaches you without going through me. She turned to him. You still don't hear yourself. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her early 60s stood in the entry, elegant, dark-haired, wrapped in composure that felt warmer than the house. Her eyes went first to Roman, then to Avery. Her expression softened. Avery. Roman said my mother, Vivian Maddox. Vivian stepped forward not too fast. You've had a long day, sweetheart. The kindness almost undid her. Avery stiffened against it. Mrs. Maddox. Vivian, please? Before Avery could answer, heels clicked across the foyer. A woman in her late 20s appeared from the hall, sleek, sharp-eyed, with black hair, pulled back and a gaze that made no effort to be polite. Sloane Roman said, My sister. Sloane looked Avery over slowly. So this is the runaway bride. Avery smiled. And you must be the welcoming committee. Sloane's brows lifted. Roman's mouth twitched once before he controlled it. Vivian gave her daughter a look. Sloane. What I said, bride. That was generous. Avery turned to Roman. I'd like my phone. Number. Sloane's eyes brightened with interest. Avery smiled at her again. Don't get excited. This is not a family bonding moment. This time Roman did smile, barely. Avery hated that she saw it. He showed her upstairs himself. The bedroom prepared for her was large and quiet with pale walls, dark furniture and windows looking over a garden stripped by late autumn. Her suitcase stood beside the wardrobe. Her backpack sat on the chair. Everything placed, everything arranged. Avery crossed the room, opened the suitcase, and saw her clothes folded inside. Someone else's hands had touched every private thing she owned. She closed the lid softly. Roman stood near the door. There is a bathroom through there. My room is next door. Avery noticed the second door along the wall. Of course it is. It locks from your side. How generous. His patience thinned. She saw it in his shoulders. You can hate me tonight. Thank you for scheduling that. But tomorrow, you meet my mother properly. Then we discuss the wedding. Avery turned. There is no wedding. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he crossed the room. Not fast, not angry, just certain. Avery stood her ground as he stopped in front of her. You can call me Cole Roman or every name you're thinking right now. But the world outside this room knows you are my fiancé. Your father knows. My enemies know. The men looking for weakness know. I am not your weakness. His eyes dropped to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. No, he said softly. That is the problem. The room went quiet. Avery hated how the air changed. She hated how her body remembered the terrace, the dark, the weight of his arm not touching her because he had promised not to. She lifted her chin. You lied. Yes. You took me. Yes. You don't get to make that sound noble because you're calm. His eyes hardened. And you don't get to pretend refusing protection makes you free. Avery stepped closer this time. Freedom is choosing who protects me. Something moved across his face then. Not victory, not anger. Recognition, maybe. A crack in the certainty. He reached into his jacket and placed her phone on the bed. I'll have dinner sent up. I'm not eating. You will when you're hungry. He walked to the door. Before he left, he looked back. With you, I was Cole. I did not fake that. Avery's voice came quiet and cruel because she needed it to. Then Cole should have been brave enough to tell the truth. Roman left. The door closed. Avery stood still until his footsteps faded. Then she sat on the bed, picked up her phone, and called Harper. Harper answered on the first ring. Avery, thank God. Avery closed her eyes. I'm in Chicago. I know. 2 men came for your things. They were terrifyingly polite. Are you hurt? Number. Did he force you? Avery looked around the room at the locked door. The folded clothes, the phone now returned like a privilege. Yes, she said. Just not in the way that leaves bruises. Harper went quiet. Then I'm coming. Number. Yes. Harper. You think I'm letting you get Mafia married without backup? Avery laughed despite herself. It broke halfway through. I don't know what I'm doing. Good. That means you're still you. Avery wiped under one eye with the heel of her hand. I hate him. Do you? Avery did not answer. Harper's voice softened. Oh, Avenue. Don't. Okay. Avery looked toward the dark window. I need you here. I'll book a flight. Use the card I'm about to send you. What card? Avery glanced at the black card on the nightstand. No name, no limit. Roman's quiet arrogance in matte plastic form. The one my future husband left like an apology with interest. Harper made a sound that was almost a laugh. That poor man has no idea what you can do with spite and available credit. For the first time all day, Avery smiled. Not yet. The next morning, Avery came downstairs in jeans, a white sweater, and a face arranged into calm. Vivian was in the breakfast room with coffee and the morning paper. Sloane was at the far end of the table, scrolling through her phone. Roman stood near the window, already dressed in a dark suit, speaking quietly into his cell. When Avery entered, he stopped mid-sentence. His eyes moved over her, once quick but thorough, as if checking for damage. She looked away before that could mean anything. Vivian smiled. Good morning. Avery sat beside her. Good morning. Sloane did not look up. I expected more screaming. Avery reached for coffee. It's early. Roman ended his call and came to the table. He placed one hand on the back of the chair beside Avery, but did not sit. I have business in the city. Congratulations. His mouth tightened. Tonight we'll talk. Avery looked up at him. I'm busy tonight. With what? Your card and my imagination. Sloane looked up now. Vivian hid a smile behind her cup. Roman leaned down slightly, his voice low enough for Avery only. Careful. Avery met his eyes. I was careful my whole life. Look where it got me. He held her gaze for a beat too long. Then his phone rang again. He looked at the screen. The change in him was instant. Clean, cold. Yes. A pause. His eyes went past Avery toward the window. When? Another pause. Keep eyes on Rourke. Nothing near the house. Nothing near her. Avery's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Rourke. She had heard that name before. Not from Roman. From her father years ago, spoken behind a closed study door in Boston with a tone even Grant Monroe did not use lightly. Roman ended the call. Avery looked at him. Who is Rourke? His face smoothed over. No one you need to worry about. There it was again. The locked door. The room she was not allowed to enter. Avery set down her cup very carefully. Roman. It was the first time she had used his name without anger wrapped around it. He noticed. So did she. His expression softened by a fraction. Avery. Before either of them could say more, a woman's voice carried from the foyer. Roman Maddox, you impossible man. Avery turned. A blonde woman swept into the room in a cream coat, all polished hair, red mouth, and confidence that had never been denied entry anywhere. She crossed straight to Roman and touched his tie as if correcting it was a habit. There, better. Roman took her wrist gently and lowered her hand. Blair. The woman smiled. Sloane stood suddenly too pleased. Blair, perfect timing. Avery watched Roman's hand release the woman's wrist, watched the familiarity, watched Blair look at him like she had been waiting years for someone else's mistake. Roman turned back toward Avery, but something inside her had already shut. He saw it happen. Avery. She stood. I hope your business in the city goes well. Avery. But she was already walking out of the breakfast room. Behind her, Roman's phone rang again. His voice followed her into the hall, low and hard. Tell me exactly what Victor Rourke is moving and why Grant Monroe's name is on the call sheet. Avery stopped. The house seemed to go silent around her. Grant Monroe. Victor Rourke. Roman Maddox. The names locked together inside her mind with a sound she could almost hear. She kept walking before anyone saw her face. Avery kept walking because stopping would have told the whole house she had heard too much. Her feet carried her up the staircase down the long hall and into the bedroom Roman had given her. The door clicked shut behind her. Only then did she let her face change. Grant Monroe. Victor Rourke. Roman's voice had been too controlled when he said those names. Not surprised exactly. Not confused. More like a man watching two separate threats step into the same room. Avery crossed to the window and pressed her palms to the cool glass. Outside, the garden lay under a pale Chicago sky. Bare branches moved in the wind. A pair of men in dark coats stood near the gate speaking into earpieces, their eyes never still. She had grown up around men like that. Men who looked at doors before they looked at people. Men who stood in corners with their hands folded and violence tucked neatly under their jackets. For 9 years, she had told herself she was out of that world. Now, she was standing inside it again, wearing Roman Maddox's ring in every conversation, even though nothing was on her finger yet. Her phone buzzed. Harper's name lit the screen. I landed. Where do you want me? Avery stared at the message for a second, then typed back. I'm on Chicago. Use the card. Stay there until I call. 3 dots appeared. This card is obscene. Avery almost smiled. Then another message came. Are you safe? Avery looked toward the closed door. Number. She erased it. For now. Roman knocked once and entered before she answered. Avery turned from the window. He stopped just inside the room. The phone call had changed him. He looked composed, but there was a pressure behind his eyes that had not been there at breakfast. You heard. It was not a question. Avery folded her arms. I heard my father's name and Rourke's name in the same sentence. Roman closed the door. What do you know about Victor Rourke? That men like my father lower their voices when they say his name. Roman's jaw moved once. That is not nothing. It is also not enough. He came a few steps closer. Rourke has been moving into shipping routes along the East Coast. He wants Chicago access. Your father owes him money or favors, maybe both. Avery held his gaze. And you were going to tell me that when I had facts. She laughed softly. No, you were going to tell me when you decided I could handle the truth. Roman did not answer. That silence angered her more than denial would have. Avery stepped around him and reached for her bag. I'm going to see Harper. Number. She turned slowly. Roman exhaled through his nose as if he had heard himself and hated it. Not alone. I did not ask permission. Avery. She zipped the bag shut. Do not use that voice on me. I am tired of rooms where men lower their voices and expect the world to obey. His eyes sharpened. You think I want obedience from you. I think you want control and call it safety because it sounds better. That one landed. Roman crossed the room but stopped before touching her. You want the truth, fine. Rourke may be moving against me. Your father may be involved. I do not know how deep it goes yet. That means you are at risk. I have been at risk since the day Grant Monroe became my father. I am trying to keep you alive, and I am trying to keep myself from disappearing inside another man's decisions. For a moment, they just stood there breathing the same tense air. Then, Roman reached into his pocket and took out a small black phone. Take this, encrypted. My number is the only one programmed in. Avery looked at it but did not take it. I have a phone. Take it anyway. Is it tracked? His pause was tiny. Avery's smile was humorless. At least you are consistent. Roman's expression tightened. It can be tracked if you call me from it. Then keep it. She grabbed her coat. Roman stood between her and the door. Avery looked up at him. Move. His eyes searched her face. Something in him fought itself. She saw it. The instinct to order. The effort to choose something else. At last, he stepped aside. I'll have a car take you. I'll take a cab. I'm not bending that far. Avery almost laughed because there he was trying and failing and still trying. Fine, your car. No men following me into the hotel. One driver. No one else. His mouth flattened. One driver. She left before either of them could turn that into tenderness. Harper opened the hotel room door, wearing a robe that looked more expensive than her rent, and a face full of a panic. Tell me everything. Avery stepped inside. The suite had wide windows looking over the city, fresh flowers on the table, and a bathroom large enough to host a small conference. Harper looked around as if she still could not believe she was allowed to touch anything. Avery dropped her bag onto the sofa. My father is connected to Victor Rourke. Harper's expression changed. That sounds bad. It is. How bad? The kind of bad Roman did not want to explain. Harper sat down slowly. Avery told her everything. Roman's call. Rourke moving. Grant's name. The wedding scheduled in 3 days. The way Roman had looked when he said nothing near the house, nothing near her. Harper listened without interrupting until Avery finished. Then she said, You need to know what your father is planning. Yes. How? Avery looked at her. Harper closed her eyes briefly. I hate that I know that look. That afternoon, they flew to Boston on Roman's card. Avery did not tell Roman until the plane had already landed. His call came before she reached baggage claim. Where are you? His voice was too calm. Avery watched Harper pull both bags from the belt. Boston. Silence. Then very quietly, Avery. I'm going to my father's house. Harper is with me. I'm not asking you to approve it. You should have told me. You would have stopped me. Yes. At least we understand each other. He drew in a breath. She could picture him standing in his study, one hand in his pocket, eyes fixed on nothing, while his mind calculated a dozen ways to reach her. Do not stay there tonight. I need access to his office. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. The echo of Cole's old line passed between them. Neither spoke for a second. Roman's voice softened. Come back to Chicago. Avery looked through the glass wall at the gray Boston afternoon. I grew up being told where to stand, when to speak, when to leave, when to come home. I cannot become your wife if I'm still someone who can be summoned. You are not being summoned. It feels the same from this side. Another silence. Then he said, call me every hour. Number, Avery. I will call you when I can. She ended the call before his worry became another chain. The Monroe mansion looked exactly as it had in her memory, which made it worse. Gray stone, iron lanterns, tall windows reflecting a sky with no warmth in it. The house sat back from the street like it had never needed to invite anyone in. Harper stood beside her on the front steps. You grew up here. Until 14, and you became a functional adult. Debatable. The door opened before Harper could answer. An older housekeeper looked at Avery, then at the suitcase, then at Harper. Miss Monroe. Avery gave her the smile she had learned in this house. Hello, Mrs. Vale. Grant Monroe was in his study when she entered. He looked up from his desk and performed surprise with insulting precision. Avery. She kissed his cheek because refusing would have started the wrong fight too early. Father. His eyes moved to Harper. And your friend. Harper Ellis. Harper smiled. Nice to meet you, Mr. Monroe. Grant acknowledged her the way a man acknowledged weather that had not yet inconvenienced him. Avery walked farther into the room. The study smelled like leather-old paper and expensive smoke. Same desk, same books, same portrait of her grandfather over the fireplace watching everyone like disappointment was genetic. I wanted to spend the night here, Avery said. Harper came for the wedding. I thought she should see where I grew up. Grant studied her, and Roman allowed that. Avery smiled. I did not ask Roman. Something flickered in her father's eyes. Annoyance first, then calculation. You are playing a dangerous game. You taught me the board. For a moment, Grant said nothing. Then he smiled like a father again. Dinner at 7. I have guests later, so stay upstairs after. Avery lowered her eyes politely. Of course. The second he left the study, Harper shut the door and whispered, I do not like him. Avery crossed to the desk. That makes 2 of us. They moved quickly. Harper opened her laptop on the leather chair while Avery accessed the office network from the desktop. The system was better than she expected. Layered permissions, separate storage, external backup. Whoever built it knew what they were doing, but they had built it to keep strangers out, not daughters. Avery knew the family passwords that were never supposed to mean anything. Her mother's birthday, the name of Grant's first racehorse, the lake house they sold when Avery was 11, tiny, sentimental scraps from a man who would deny having any. By the time the hallway clock struck 5, Avery had a quiet audio relay running from the study computer to her phone. Harper leaned over the desk. Is it clean? Clean enough. That is not comforting. It is not meant to be. A knock hit the door. Both women froze. Mrs. Vale opened it halfway. Avery shifted the screen before the housekeeper saw more than a bridal website. Harper grabbed the performance instantly. I still think the lace one is too traditional. Avery clicked on the first wedding dress image she saw. It has structure. It has emotional damage. Mrs. Vale looked from one woman to the other. Mr. Monroe asked if you needed anything. Avery smiled. No, thank you. We are just looking at dresses. The housekeeper's eyes lingered on the laptop. Then she left. Harper sagged into the chair. I have never hated lace more. Avery's phone showed a small green dot. The relay was live. They went upstairs before dinner and stayed there. At 7:30, men's voices entered the study through Avery's phone speaker in broken fragments. Chairs shifted. Glass touched wood. Grant's voice appeared first smooth and controlled, then another voice, lower, older, patient in a way that made Avery's skin crawl. Roman Maddox has grown sentimental. Grant answered sentiment makes men careless. Avery sat frozen on her childhood bed. Harper moved closer. The older voice continued. The wedding gives us every advantage. Cameras on the bride. Security watching guests. Maddox standing where everyone expects him to stand. Avery's fingers tightened around the phone. Harper whispered, "Oh my God." Grant said, "Your men handle Maddox, mine handle the exit." And the girl. There was a pause. Avery stopped breathing. Grant's voice came back quieter. "My daughter will not be harmed." The older man gave a soft laugh. "You still say that like she belongs to you." "She does." Avery closed her eyes. The older man said after the dust settles she will need protection. A Monroe widow tied to the Maddox name even briefly has value. Grant did not object. He only said, "We can discuss that after Roman is gone." Harper put a hand over her mouth. The older voice warmed with satisfaction. "Good. Then Boston clears its debt. Chicago fractures. Rourke takes the roots. You keep your name alive." Avery set the phone carefully on the bed before she crushed it in her hand. Her father had not arranged a rescue. He had arranged a murder. And after Roman, another cage. Harper whispered Avery. Avery stood. Her legs felt strangely steady. I need his files. Avenue. I need everything. By 2 in the morning, the mansion had gone quiet. Avery sat in Grant's study with the laptop open, the only light coming from the screen. Harper stood near the door, listening for footsteps. Avery broke through the financial archive just after 3. Shell companies, wire transfers, port contracts, Rourke names hidden inside initials and consulting fees, Grant's debt woven through false invoices and coded agreements. There was enough to ruin him. There was enough to bury Rourke. Then she found the Maddox folder. Her hand stilled over the trackpad. Harper came beside her. What is it? Avery opened the first file. Maddox Logistics. Old shipments. Names attached to men Roman had inherited, not yet cut loose. Not clean. Not innocent. Not enough to make him Rourke, but enough to pull him into the same net if placed in the wrong hands. Harper watched her face. You can delete it. Avery whispered, if I delete all of it, he stands at that altar with a target on his chest. Harper did not speak. Avery selected the folder. Most of the files vanished into a secure wipe. One remained. A narrow document. Enough to bring questions. Not enough to hold him. Her eyes burned. I need him away from the altar. Harper's voice was soft. And away from you. Avery did not answer. By dawn, the files were gathered in an encrypted archive and sent through an anonymous channel to a federal prosecutor's office that had been circling Rourke for years. Avery sat back in Grant's chair. Her hands were shaking now. Harper touched her shoulder. We need to leave. Avery nodded. They were halfway up the stairs when Grant's voice came from the foyer below. You were in my study. Avery stopped. Grant stood at the bottom of the staircase in his shirt sleeves, phone in hand, face stripped clean of its polish. He looked older in the morning light. He also looked more dangerous. Harper moved behind Avery. Grant's eyes stayed on his daughter. What did you take? Avery descended 1 step. Her voice came out calm. What you taught me to look for. His jaw tightened. You stupid girl. The words did not cut the way they once had. Avery came down another step. No, not anymore. Grant started toward the stairs, but the front door opened behind him. Roman walked in with 2 men at his back. His coat was dark with rain. His eyes went to Avery, first scanning her face, her hands, the space around her. Then he looked at Grant. The foyer changed. Grant's expression closed. Maddox. Roman did not greet him. I told you not to stay here, he said to Avery. She looked down at him from the stairs. I know. His eyes held hers a second longer than anger required. Then Grant said, take your fiancée and leave my house. Roman's gaze shifted back to him. Gladly. Grant laughed once. You have no idea what she has done. Roman looked at Avery again. She saw the question. She saw the fear under it. She came down the remaining stairs and stopped beside him. I know what he planned for the wedding, she said. Roman went completely still. Grant's face changed. Avery looked at her father. And I know what he planned for me after you were dead. The silence that followed had weight. Roman's hand found hers. Not to pull, not to claim. Just there. Avery let him hold it. Grant looked at their joined hands and understood something too late. Roman's voice came low and even. You will attend tomorrow. You will smile. You will not come near her. Grant's mouth twisted. You think this ends with vows? Avery looked at him. No, it ends with evidence. For the first time in her life, she saw her father afraid. Not much. Enough. Roman guided her out into the rain. Harper followed close behind. At the car, he opened the door for Avery, but did not make her get in. She stood facing him, rain gathering in her hair. You came for me. His expression was unreadable. You called once and hung up before I could answer. I did not mean to. I know. How? Roman reached into his coat and held up the black phone she had refused. You left it in the room. It was live for 3 seconds. I heard Grant say my name. Avery looked down. Roman stepped closer. What did you send? Her throat tightened. Enough. His jaw flexed. To who? Federal prosecutors. Rain moved between them, cold and steady. Roman's voice dropped. Was I in it? Avery looked up at him. He saw the answer before she spoke. One file. His face went still. Why? Because if they take you in for questioning, you are not standing at the altar when Rourke moves. For a moment, there was nothing human in his expression. Then pain crossed it fast and silent. And if I do not come back out, you will. You calculated that. I had to. Roman looked away toward the gray street. Avery's voice broke. I could not watch you die. His eyes returned to hers. But you could watch me be taken. Avery had no defense. Only the truth. I thought it was the only way I could save you and still leave. Roman absorbed that. The rain darkened his collar. Neither of them moved. Then he opened the car door wider. Get in. This time his voice was not an order. It was what was left after one. Avery got in. Roman sat beside her but did not touch her. As the car pulled away from the Monroe mansion, Avery looked out the window at the house that had taught her fear, then at the reflection of Roman beside her, silent and wounded and alive. Her phone buzzed in her lap. An unknown number. She opened the message. We received your materials. Maintain your planned location tomorrow. Do not interfere with federal action. Avery closed her hand around the phone. Roman saw her face. What is it? She turned toward the rain-streaked glass. The wedding is still happening. Avery read the message 3 times before the words settled into her bones. Maintain your planned location tomorrow. Do not interfere with federal action. Beside her, Roman said nothing. The car moved through Boston rain wipers, cutting the windshield in clean, rhythmic strokes. Harper sat in the front passenger seat, silent for once, her hands folded over her bag. Outside, the Monroe mansion disappeared behind black iron gates and wet hedges. Avery kept the phone in her lap. Roman had seen enough to know the message mattered. He had also heard enough to know she was still choosing how much of herself to give him. That was new. His silence was new. Usually, Roman Maddox filled silence with control. A question. An order. A solution. A hand at the small of her back guiding her before she had agreed to move. Now he sat beside her, with his hands resting loosely on his thighs, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. The quiet did not feel peaceful. It felt like punishment neither of them had decided who deserved. Avery turned her head slightly. You're angry. His answer came after a long moment. Yes, she swallowed. With me. His eyes moved to her. With everyone. That's not an answer. It is the only one I can give without saying something I'll regret. Avery looked down at her phone. You asked me to trust you. I did. I did not know how. Roman's gaze stayed on her face, and for one dangerous second she thought he might soften. He did not. You trusted prosecutors before you trusted me. I trusted a system that could remove you from the altar without asking you to cooperate. A muscle shifted in his jaw. You used me as part of a plan. Avery flinched because the words were true. Roman noticed. Of course, he noticed. He noticed everything. Her voice dropped. My father used me as a bargaining chip. Rourke wanted to use me after you were dead. You used me when you brought me to Chicago. I hated all of you for deciding where I belonged. She looked at him then. And then I did the same thing to you. Roman's face changed only slightly. Rain drew silver lines across the window beside him. Avery continued quieter. I am sorry. He looked away first. The car reached the airport. Roman's jet waited under gray morning light. No one spoke as they boarded. Harper sat near the front and pretended very hard to study her phone. Avery sat by the window. Roman sat across from her this time, not beside her. The flight back to Chicago felt longer than the first one. No forced closeness. No stolen phone. No locked partition. No fury sharp enough to hide behind. Only 2 people who had touched something real and wounded it with both hands. At some point, Roman stood and crossed to her. He placed a folded paper on the table. Avery looked at it. What is that? A list of names. Men on my security team I trust. Men I do not. Rourke may have reached some of them through Monroe. She stared at the paper, then at him. You are showing me this. Yes. Why? His eyes stayed level. Because you said decisions about your life keep happening in rooms you are not in. Her throat tightened. Roman did not wait for gratitude. He returned to his seat. Avery unfolded the paper and read the names. It should have been a small thing. It was not. By the time they reached the Maddox estate, evening had settled over Chicago. The house was lit from the inside windows, glowing gold against the cold. Staff moved through the foyer, carrying flowers, linens, trays, boxes. The wedding had become a machine, alive and unstoppable. White roses arrived by the hundreds. Chairs lined the garden in perfect rows. Men checked gates. Women carried garment bags upstairs. Caterers rolled silver carts through side doors as if no one had uncovered a murder plot less than 12 hours earlier. Vivian met them in the foyer. Her eyes went to Roman first. Mothers always knew where pain lived. Then to Avery. Are you hurt? Avery shook her head. Vivian crossed the foyer and took both of Avery's hands. Not dramatically, not to comfort herself. Simply to hold. You look frozen through. Avery almost laughed. I feel worse than that. Vivian glanced toward Roman. He looked away. Sloane came down the stairs with a clipboard in one hand and a phone in the other. Security has been doubled. Guest list rechecked. Half of these people hate each other and all of them expect champagne, so that is charming. Her eyes moved over Avery. You went to Boston. Avery lifted her chin. Yes, and came back with federal ghosts, I'm guessing. Roman said Sloane. Sloane looked at him. What we are all pretending tomorrow is still a wedding. Someone should at least admit it smells like a trap wearing perfume. Avery surprised herself by answering. It is a trap. Sloane's gaze sharpened. For who? Avery looked toward the garden doors, where workers were carrying an arch of flowers into the cold. For everyone who thinks they know where I'll stand. No one replied. That night, Avery did not sleep. She sat on the floor of her bedroom in the wedding dress, the skirt spread around her like spilled moonlight. Harper sat on the bed behind her, pinning the hem in small, careful sections, even though a seamstress had already done it. She needed something to do with her hands. The dress was beautiful. That was almost cruel. Silk fitted close through the bodice, then fell in a clean line. The neckline was lower than Avery would have chosen a month ago, and exactly what she would choose tonight. Not because she wanted to provoke Roman. Not anymore. Because if she was going to walk into the garden where her father planned murder, and the government planned arrests, she wanted one part of the day to belong to her own reflection. Harper looked at her in the mirror. You can still leave before morning. Avery's lips moved faintly. I tried leaving. It followed me. You know what I mean. Avery looked down at the pearls Vivian had given her earlier. They sat in an open velvet box on the vanity. I know. Harper came to sit beside her on the floor. Are you marrying him? Avery closed her eyes. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. That is the most honest thing you have said all week. Avery laughed softly, then covered her face. I love him. Harper leaned her shoulder against Avery's. I know. I also betrayed him. Yes. He betrayed me first. Also, yes. Avery dropped her hands. That does not make it clean. No, it makes it human. Downstairs, a door opened and closed. Men's voices moved through the hall. The house never fully slept, but tonight it felt awake in every wall. Avery looked toward the window. Do you think he hates me? Harper did not answer right away. Then she said, I think Roman Maddox looks at you like hating you would still be too close to love to give him any peace. Avery looked at her. That was annoyingly poetic. I contain multitudes. Avery smiled, but it faded quickly. Near midnight, Roman knocked. Harper rose and opened the door only a few inches. Roman stood in the hallway, jacket off, sleeves rolled, hair slightly disordered, like he had been running his hand through it. His eyes went past Harper to Avery on the floor in the dress. He went still. Avery felt that stillness from across the room. Harper cleared her throat. Bad luck. Roman did not look at her. Give us a minute. Harper glanced at Avery. Avery nodded once. Harper stepped into the hall and closed the door behind her. Roman stayed near the door. You look beautiful. Avery's fingers tightened around the dress. You should not see me before the wedding." His mouth moved, but it was not a smile. I am starting to think luck was never our strongest asset. Avery stood carefully. The dress whispered around her feet. For a moment, neither moved. Then Roman crossed the room and stopped just outside touching distance. "I read the file you left." Avery looked up at him. "It should not hold you." "It will not." Her shoulders loosened by a fraction. He saw that too. "You were right about the timing." She waited. Roman's voice was low. "If I stand at that altar without federal interference, Rourke moves. If I am detained, his men wait for confusion that will not come the way they expect." Avery's throat tightened. "I did not know another way. You could have told me. I was afraid you would stop me." "I might have." "I know." Roman looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "I keep thinking about Charleston." Avery's eyes burned at once. "Number." His expression softened. "Number. Do not bring him into this." "Cole." "Yes." Roman stepped closer. "I was him too. You were him when it was easy." His gaze dropped briefly. "No, I was him when I was with you and forgot to be afraid." The words landed softly, which made them worse. Avery closed her eyes. Roman's hand lifted, then stopped before touching her cheek. He let it fall. That hurt more than if he had reached for her. "Tomorrow," he said, "whatever happens, do exactly what the agents tell you." Avery opened her eyes. "You are giving me instructions again." His mouth tightened. "I am asking you to live." She looked at him, the dress between them, the whole house holding its breath around them. "I am trying." Roman nodded once. Then he turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. "Avery." She looked at him. "If you run after tomorrow, I will not send anyone after you." Her heart gave one hard, painful beat. "What?" He did not turn around. "I know what forced looks like now." He opened the door and left. Avery stood in the middle of the room until Harper came back in and found her crying silently, one hand pressed to her mouth so the sound would not escape. Morning arrived, clear and cold. The garden glittered with frost at the edges of the grass, but by noon the sun had warmed the stone path. White chairs stood in perfect rows. The floral arch rose at the end of the aisle, heavy with roses and winter greenery. A string quartet tested notes near the fountain. Champagne glasses caught light on long tables under white canopies. Guests began arriving in dark coats and expensive shoes. Avery watched from upstairs as black cars lined the drive. There was her father caller, perfect smile, controlled speaking to a man Avery did not recognize. There were Sloane's friends, Vivian's cousins, men from Chicago who watched exits before shaking hands, women in silk, who pretended not to notice the security. And there, near the far edge of the garden, Victor Rourke, older than Avery expected. Silver hair, calm face, a red scarf at his throat like a drop of blood someone had dressed nicely. He looked up toward the house. For a second, Avery thought he saw her. She stepped back from the window. Harper came behind her and fastened the last button at the back of the dress. "You are shaking." "I know. Breathe." "I am." "No, you are negotiating with oxygen." Avery let out a strained laugh. A knock came. Vivian entered carrying the velvet box. She looked at Avery in the dress and stopped. Her face softened in a way that made Avery ache. "Oh, sweetheart." Avery swallowed. Vivian opened the box and lifted the pearls. "My mother wore these when she married my father. I wore them when I married Romans. They have seen too many difficult women walk into difficult rooms." Avery met her eyes in the mirror. "Were you afraid?" Vivian smiled sadly. "Terrified." "Did you regret it?" Vivian took a breath. "Some days. Not my son, never him." She clasped the pearls around Avery's neck. Then she leaned close and said quietly, "Whatever choice you make today, make sure it is yours." Avery closed her eyes. When she opened them, Vivian was watching her in the mirror with a tenderness that did not demand anything back. Downstairs, the music changed. It was time. Grant waited near the garden doors. When he saw Avery, his face went still for half a second. Not pride, not love. Possession, recognizing that the thing it owned had learned how to stand without permission. He offered his arm. Avery looked at it. Number. His eyes hardened. Avery. Vivian appeared beside him and slid her hand through his arm before he could continue. Mr. Monroe, you will escort me. Grant looked at her. Vivian smiled with perfect warmth. It will look better. That ended it, because men like Grant feared appearances almost as much as death. Harper stepped beside Avery, ready. Avery looked through the open doors. The garden waited. Roman stood at the altar. Dark suit, white shirt, no tie. The wind moved lightly through his hair. He turned when the doors opened and every face between them disappeared. Avery saw only him. For 1 second the whole day became impossible. Not the trap. Not the agents. Not her father. Not Rourke. Not the file she had left like a knife wrapped in silk. Just Roman looking at her like the sight of her had struck something sacred and painful inside him. His mouth moved faintly. Not a smile. A breath. Avery walked. Harper's arm was steady through hers. The stone path felt cold even through the soles of her shoes. Guests turned. Fabric rustled. Somewhere a camera clicked. Grant watched from the front row. Rourke watched from the side. Vivian's eyes glistened. Sloane stood near Roman, expression sharp and unreadable, but her hands were clenched around her bouquet. Avery reached the altar. Harper released her. Roman held out his hand. Avery looked at it, then took it. His fingers closed around hers, warm and steady. "You came," he said under his breath. "I said I would." His eyes searched her face. The officiant began. "Family and friends, we are gathered here today." The sirens cut through the garden before he finished the sentence. At first, no one moved. Then, black vehicles came through the gates, hard enough to send gravel scattering. Federal agents spilled out in dark vests, moving with cold precision. Not chaotic, not rushed. They knew exactly where they were going. The garden erupted. Guests stood. Chairs scraped. A woman gasped. Someone knocked over a champagne tray and glass shattered across stone. Grant turned toward the drive. 2 agents were already on him. Victor Rourke did not run. He adjusted his sleeve like the whole thing mildly disappointed him, then raised his hands when 3 agents surrounded him. Sloane stepped closer to Vivian. Harper gripped the back of a chair. Roman did not move. His hand tightened once around Avery's. An agent approached the altar. "Roman Cole Maddox." Avery felt the words before she heard the rest. "You are being detained for questioning in connection with an ongoing federal investigation." Roman looked at the agent, then at Avery. His face was unreadable. Avery's eyes filled despite every promise she had made to herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The garden noise seemed to fall away. Roman looked at her as if he was reading every choice she had made and every fear beneath it. She forced the words out. "I love you." His expression shifted. Pain. Understanding. Something like mercy, but not quite. He gave one slow nod. Not forgiveness. Not condemnation. A truth accepted in public because neither of them could survive a private version right now. The agent touched his arm. Roman released Avery's hand. The absence was immediate. He walked away with them. Vivian followed 2 steps, then stopped when Sloane caught her arm. Grant's voice cut across the garden. "Avery." She turned. Her father was being led toward a vehicle, wrists cuffed, face dark with fury. "You did this." Avery looked at him. For the first time, she did not feel 14. "Yes." His mouth twisted. "You think he will forgive you?" Avery said nothing. A car door closed on his answer. Rourke went next, calm gone now, his voice rising as agents guided him away. The red scarf at his throat had come loose. The garden that had been built for vows stood wrecked in the sunlight. White petals crushed under black boots. Champagne running across stone. Empty chairs tilted crooked in rows. Harper reached Avery's side and gripped her arm. "We have to go." Avery stared at the place where Roman had stood. Avenue. She nodded, though she did not feel herself do it. They moved fast. Through the side path. Past the caterers frozen near the service entrance. Past 2 agents speaking into radios. Harper held Avery's train up as they hurried toward the front drive. A cab waited at the curb because Harper had ordered it the moment the sirens came. Avery climbed in wearing the wedding dress. The driver looked back once decided not to ask and pulled away. For several blocks, neither woman spoke. Chicago passed outside the window like nothing had happened. People crossed streets with coffee in hand. A cyclist cursed at a delivery truck. A child in a red hat pointed at Avery through the window and tugged his mother's sleeve. Harper finally said, "Why did they take Roman?" Avery kept her eyes on the city. "I left one file." "I thought you deleted them." "Almost all." Harper sat back. "Enough to bring him in. Not enough to charge him." "You are sure?" Avery's fingers twisted in the silk of her skirt. "I have to be." The airport was bright and loud and brutally normal. Avery moved through the terminal in her wedding dress with Harper beside her, and every head turned. Some people stared openly. Some looked away quickly, embarrassed by their own curiosity. A woman near a coffee stand whispered, "Oh, honey," under her breath. Avery kept walking. Harper had already booked 2 tickets to Charleston. Their gate sat at the end of a long corridor lined with windows. Planes moved outside under a hard afternoon sky. The boarding line had already formed. Harper handed Avery a boarding pass. "You can change on the plane." Avery took it. Her hands did not feel like hers. The line moved slowly. Avery stared at the shoulders of the man in front of her. Navy coat, gray hair, phone in hand. Ordinary details, safe details. Her life had been built from extraordinary dangers, and suddenly all she wanted was an ordinary door she could open without fear. The line moved. 10 people ahead. Then 7. Harper watched her face. "Avery, I know." "What do you know?" Avery looked at the gate. "I know I should get on that plane." Harper said nothing. "I know Charleston is warmer. I know your couch is terrible but familiar. I know if I leave now, no one can say I did not choose myself." The line moved again. 4 people ahead. Avery's breath shook. "But where am I running to?" Harper lowered the ticket slowly. Avery looked at her, and the words came out before she could clean them up. "Boston found me. Charleston found me. Chicago found me. Fear will find me anywhere because I keep carrying it like proof that I survived." Harper's eyes softened. The gate agent scanned another boarding pass. 3 people ahead. Avery pressed one hand to her ribs. "My mother was the only place that felt warm for a long time. Then she died, and I made distance into a religion. I thought if I never needed anyone, no one could take anything from me." Her voice broke. "And then I slept beside him, and for one night I knew what it felt like to stop bracing." Harper's lips trembled. "Avenue. He has to hate me. Number. He should. That is different." 2 people ahead. Avery looked down at the boarding pass. "I used him. You saved him. I betrayed him. You loved him badly because no one ever taught you how to do it safely." Avery closed her eyes. The gate agent called the next passenger. 1 person ahead. Harper touched her hand. "You can still go." Avery opened her eyes. Roman's voice moved through her memory. "If you run after tomorrow, I will not send anyone after you." He had finally let her go, and she had no idea how to live with the freedom if it did not include choosing him back. Avery handed the boarding pass to Harper. Harper smiled through tears like she had been waiting for this. "Go." Avery lifted the front of her wedding dress and ran. She ran past the gate, past the coffee stand, past the woman who said, "Oh, honey," and now gasped into her cup. She ran down the terminal with the silk gathered in both hands, hair coming loose pearls cold against her throat. This time no one chased her. This time no one ordered her into a car. This time running felt different. Outside the airport, she climbed into the first cab she saw. The driver looked at the dress. Rough day. Avery caught her breath. You could say that. Where to? She looked out at the city, then back at him. The Maddox estate. The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Big house up north. Yes. He pulled away from the curb. Avery sat back, hands still gripping the dress. The cab moved through the city and out toward the quieter roads. With every mile her fear grew sharper, but beneath it there was something steadier. She was not going back because she was trapped. She was going back because she had left part of herself in that ruined garden, standing beside a man who had finally learned to open his hand. The estate gates were still open when the cab arrived. The garden looked abandoned. White chairs sat crooked in the wind. Flowers had fallen from the arch. A tablecloth dragged loose from a cocktail table, fluttering like a flag of surrender. Petals scattered across the stone path where agents had walked and guests had run. Avery paid the driver with shaking hands and stepped onto the gravel. Her heels sank slightly. For a moment she stood there in the wedding dress and listened. No music, no sirens, only wind moving through stripped trees. She walked to the front door and knocked before she lost courage. Vivian opened it. Her face was pale, tired, and full of something too gentle to be accusation. Avery's voice cracked. "Is he here?" Vivian looked at her for a long second. "We thought you left." "I did." The answer was small. Vivian stepped forward and pulled her inside. Avery broke then. Not gracefully, not quietly. She folded into Vivian's arms and cried like someone who had been holding herself upright for years and had finally found a place where falling would not get her punished. Vivian held her. Behind them, Sloane's voice came from the hall. "Well, the runaway bride returns." Avery lifted her head. Sloane stood with her arms crossed, eyes sharp as ever, but there was no cruelty in her face. Avery wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand. "Is he here?" Sloane tilted her head toward the study. "Lawyers got him out 20 minutes ago. Not enough to charge him. He has been in there since." Avery looked down the hall. The study door was closed. A line of light glowed beneath it. Her heart beat so hard it almost hurt. Vivian touched her arm. "Go on." Avery walked toward the door. Each step felt longer than the aisle had. She stopped with her hand on the knob and took one breath. Then she opened it. Roman stood by the window with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was not drinking. His jacket was gone. His shirt sleeves were rolled. His hair looked like he had run both hands through it too many times. When the door opened, he turned. His eyes found the dress first, then her face. For a second, neither of them moved. Avery closed the door behind her. "I'm sorry." Roman set the glass down carefully. "Which part?" She deserved that. All of it. He crossed the room slowly. Avery forced herself not to step back. The file. The raid. Running. Not telling you the whole truth. Loving you and still choosing every possible way to leave. Roman stopped in front of her. His face was controlled, but his eyes were not. "You came back." She nodded. "I almost didn't." "That sounds honest." "It is." His hand lifted to her face, then paused. Avery reached for his wrist and brought his palm to her cheek. His breath changed. "I thought you would hate me," she whispered. "I tried." Avery's eyes filled again. Roman's thumb moved once along her cheekbone. It did not take. She laughed through tears, broken and relieved, and still afraid. "I do not know how to do this. Neither do I. You always look like you know everything. I have been wrong about almost everything that mattered with you." That undid her more than any apology could have. She stepped closer. "I cannot be owned. I know. I need my work. My name, my money, my choices. Yes? No tracking my phone because you are scared." His mouth tightened. Then he nodded. "No tracking without your knowledge. No rooms where my life is discussed without me. Yes, if I stay as myself." Roman looked at her like the answer was simpler than breathing. "That is the only version of you I want." Avery closed her eyes. His forehead came to hers. For a moment, they stood there in the quiet, study wedding wreckage outside federal shadows still moving somewhere beyond the gates, fathers and enemies and lies scattered behind them like broken glass. Roman whispered, "I let you go." "I know." "You came back." "Yes." "Why?" Avery opened her eyes. "Because for the first time in my life, no one was making me." Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he kissed her. Not like the hotel. Not like anger. Not like possession. This was slower, deeper, the kind of kiss that did not try to win anything because the war had exhausted them both. When he pulled back, his eyes stayed on hers. He reached into his pocket. Avery's breath caught. Roman went down on one knee. No crowd, no music, no father waiting to hand her over, no business arrangement wrapped in white roses. Just Roman looking up at her with the ring in his hand. "Avery Monroe," he said. Voice rough, will you marry me because you choose to? Not because your father promised you. Not because I found your photo. Not because I ordered anyone to bring you anywhere. Her lips trembled. Then why? His eyes held hers. Because you came back when you were finally free to leave. Avery lowered herself to her knees in front of him, the wedding dress pooling around them both. Ask me again without the world attached. Roman's face softened. Will you marry me because you love me? Avery held out her hand. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. She kissed him before he could rise her hands in his hair, his arms closing around her like he still could not believe she was real and staying. Outside the study, the ruined garden darkened under the evening sky. Inside, Avery finally stopped running. Roman's hands closed around Avery's face like he was afraid the room might take her back. The ring sat on her finger, cold at first, then warming against her skin. It looked strange there. Beautiful, yes, but strange. Not because it was too large or too bright or too much like everything she had once hated. Strange because for the first time it had not been placed on her hand as proof that someone had won. She had held out her hand. That changed everything. Roman kissed her again, slower this time. His mouth carried relief, anger, restraint, all of it tangled together until Avery could not separate one feeling from another. She did not try. Her hands moved into his hair. His arms tightened around her waist, lifting her from the floor as he stood. The wedding dress dragged over the rug in a whisper of silk. Avery laughed once against his mouth, breathless and unsteady. Roman pulled back just enough to look at her. What? She shook her head. I ran through an airport in this dress. His mouth curved. I noticed. You did not see it. I'm imagining it. That poor cab driver may never recover. Roman's smile faded into something softer. His thumb moved along her cheek. I almost did not recover. The room quieted around them. Avery looked down. Her hands rested against his chest, and beneath her palms his heartbeat was hard and steady. I hurt you. Yes. She closed her eyes. I did not want to. I know. That does not make it better. Number. His honesty stung, but it also steadied her. He was not offering easy forgiveness as another form of control. He was letting the wound exist. Avery opened her eyes again. What happens now? Roman looked toward the door, then back to her. Now we deal with the part outside this room. She almost smiled. I hate the part outside this room. So do I. He lowered his forehead to hers. But I will not hide you from it. That sentence held more weight than any promise he had made before. Avery touched the ring with her thumb. Together. His eyes stayed on hers. Together. When they left the study, Vivian was waiting in the hall with Sloane near the staircase. Neither woman pretended they had not been listening for movement. Vivian saw Avery's hand first. Her face changed not into surprise, but into a kind of tired joy that made Avery's throat tighten all over again. Sloane leaned against the banister. Well, at least one thing went according to plan today. Roman gave her a look. Sloane lifted both hands. That was almost supportive. Vivian came forward and took Avery's hands. Her eyes dropped to the ring, then rose to Avery's face. Was it your choice? Avery answered without looking at Roman. Yes. Vivian nodded once. Then welcome home if you decide that is what this becomes. Avery did not know how to answer that. The word home still frightened her. It sounded too much like a thing that could be taken. Roman's hand settled at the small of her back. Light, present, not pushing. For once, she did not step away. The next morning, federal agents returned. Not with sirens this time. Not with vests cutting through flowers and guests. They arrived in plain dark cars under a pale sky, carrying folders, warrants, and faces that said the spectacle was over and the work had begun. Avery sat beside Roman in the study while two attorneys stood near the bookshelves. Vivian sat across from them, hands folded. Sloane paced by the windows, stopping every few minutes to answer a message with the ruthless efficiency of a woman who had decided panic was beneath her. An agent named Callahan placed a folder on Roman's desk. We are going to need continued cooperation. Roman looked at the folder. You have it. Callahan's eyes shifted to Avery. And from you, Mrs. Monroe." Roman's jaw moved at the name, but he said nothing. Avery sat straighter. "I understand." Callahan opened the folder. Photographs, transfers, names, diagrams of shell companies. The quiet architecture of men who thought money could wash blood clean if it passed through enough hands. Avery recognized her father's signatures. She recognized the cold precision of the world he had built. For years, she had imagined that if she ever saw proof of his crimes laid bare, she would feel vindicated. Instead, she felt tired. Callahan slid one page toward her. "Can you confirm this came from your father's office archive?" Avery looked at Roman. He did not answer for her. He did not lean in, did not touch her hand beneath the table, did not rescue her from the weight of saying yes. He simply stayed. Avery looked back at Callahan. "Yes." Her voice did not shake. The first week passed in statements lawyers sealed rooms and controlled headlines. The papers called it a federal operation against organized crime networks tied to Boston and Chicago commercial routes. They did not use words like daughter or wedding dress or love. They did not mention how Avery had stood in an airport with pearls still at her throat, trying to decide whether freedom meant leaving the only man who had ever learned how to let her go. Grant Monroe was denied bail. Victor Rourke's attorneys tried to make noise, but the evidence spread too wide and too deep. Men who had once lowered their voices around his name began giving interviews in gray rooms with no windows. Roman was questioned 3 more times. Each time he walked in with his attorneys and walked out with his face unreadable. Each time Avery waited, not outside the building. Roman told her not to, and she told him she was done taking instructions. Then he changed the sentence. "I am asking because there are cameras." She had looked at him for a moment. Then she nodded. So she waited at a coffee shop 2 blocks away with Harper on the phone and her laptop open, pretending to work while her eyes went to the door every 30 seconds. The 3rd time Roman returned, he slid into the booth across from her. Avery closed the laptop. "Well," he loosened his tie. "I am free to go." Again. His mouth moved. Again. She reached across the table and took his hand. No one in the cafe knew what that meant. No one knew that 2 weeks earlier his hand on hers had felt like a cage. Now his fingers threaded through hers and it felt like an answer they were still learning to speak. Roman looked down at their joined hands. "You are staring. I am allowed. At my hand. At the fact that I get to hold it." His eyes softened. Avery looked away first because tenderness still had a way of making her feel exposed. Outside, snow began falling over Chicago in thin, nervous flakes. The real wedding happened 6 weeks later. Not in the Maddox garden. Avery refused that immediately. Too many federal memories, Harper said, and Avery had pointed at her like that settled it. They chose a small courthouse ceremony near the lake on a Thursday morning that smelled like winter and old paper. Vivian wore navy. Sloane wore black and claimed it was not a statement. Harper cried before Avery even signed the first document. Roman wore a dark suit, no tie. Avery wore a simple cream dress that ended below her knees and made her feel like she could breathe. Before they went inside, Roman stopped her on the courthouse steps. People moved around them with folders, coffee briefcases, ordinary troubles. The city rose behind him, gray and bright. He took her hand. Last chance. Avery looked at him. To run. To choose again. The wind moved through her hair. Avery stepped closer and fixed his collar even though it did not need fixing. "You are getting better at asking. I have had a severe education." She smiled. Then she stood on her toes and kissed him in front of the courthouse, in front of strangers, in front of the city that had once felt like another trap waiting to close. Inside, when the clerk asked if she took Roman Cole Maddox as her husband, Avery did not think of her father. She did not think of the first arrangement or the ruined garden, or the photo Roman had once studied like fate could be read from a captured second. She looked at Roman. "I do." Roman's answer came lower, rougher. "I do." Harper made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. Sloane handed her a tissue without looking at her. Afterward, they ate breakfast at a diner because Avery wanted pancakes, and because Roman, for all his power, had learned not to question Avery when she wanted pancakes. He sat beside her in the booth with his jacket off and his wedding ring shining against the white coffee cup in his hand. Harper lifted her orange juice, to the least normal love story I have ever witnessed. Sloane lifted her coffee, to not being arrested at this one. Vivian closed her eyes. Sloane, what I am grateful. Avery laughed. Roman watched her as if the sound alone was enough to reorder the room. Later, when they returned to the estate, Avery stood in the bedroom that had once felt like a gilded cell. Her suitcase was open on the bed. Roman leaned in the doorway. You do not have to move out tonight. Avery folded a sweater and placed it in the suitcase. I know. This house can be yours. She looked around. The pale walls, the wide windows, the garden beyond them. It was beautiful. It was safe, or as safe as a house like this could be. But it had become theirs during a war. She needed something that began without sirens. I want an apartment, she said. Roman nodded. Then we find one. You do not want to argue. I want to. I am choosing growth. She turned smiling despite herself. That sounded painful. It was. He crossed the room and placed both hands on her waist. Lake view or city view? Both, of course. And not too perfect. His brows drew together. Not too perfect. I want scuffed molding. A neighbor with a loud dog. A coffee shop downstairs that forgets my order twice a week and then learns it forever. Roman studied her as if she had handed him a code he wanted to solve correctly. You want ordinary. Avery touched his face. I want real. They found it 3 weeks later on the 8th floor of an older building near Lake Michigan. 2 bedrooms. Tall windows. Uneven hallway floor. A radiator that hissed like it was personally offended by winter. From the kitchen, if Avery leaned against the counter and looked past the neighboring roofline, she could see a clean strip of water. Roman looked deeply offended by the elevator. Avery loved it immediately. The realtor was still explaining the building fees when Avery walked into the smaller bedroom and stood in the middle of it. This one. Roman came to the doorway. We have seen 8 apartments. This one. The closet is small. I have lived out of a suitcase for years. The kitchen needs work. You cook. Suffer creatively. His mouth curved. The realtor stopped talking. Roman looked at Avery in the bare room with the late afternoon light on her face and said, We will take it. Avery glanced at him. You did not negotiate. Roman shrugged. You said this one. The first night in the apartment they ate takeout on the floor because the dining table had not arrived. Harper sent a photo of herself from Charleston holding a glass of wine and wearing a bridesmaid dress she had bought too late to wear anywhere. Sloane sent a list of contractors without being asked. Vivian sent soup. Roman opened the container. Why soup? Avery sat cross-legged on the floor in one of his shirts. She thinks we are emotionally malnourished. Roman considered that. She is not wrong. Avery laughed and leaned against his shoulder. For a long moment, neither of them moved. No guards in the hallway. No father at the door. No wedding guests. No sirens. Just cardboard boxes, city noise, and the soft hum of heat coming through old pipes. Avery closed her eyes. Roman kissed the top of her head. You okay? She nodded. I think I am. The months that followed did not become simple. Nothing true ever did. Grant Monroe took a plea after 3 of his closest men turned on him. Avery attended one hearing and no more. She watched her father stand in a dark suit before the judge smaller than he had ever looked in her childhood. When he turned and saw her sitting behind the prosecutor, his face did not soften. Avery had not expected it to. The judge gave him 5 years. Outside, the courthouse reporters shouted questions. Avery kept walking. Roman stayed beside her close, but not touching until they reached the car. Inside, he asked, Do you want to talk? Avery watched the courthouse through the tinted glass. Number. Roman nodded. After a moment, she reached for his hand. He gave it without comment. Victor Rourke fought harder and lost worse. Federal prosecutors tied him to the planned attack, trafficking routes, intimidation, and a list of crimes that stretched back farther than Avery had been alive. Roman testified on a cold morning in January. Avery watched from the back of the courtroom. He answered every question evenly, without decoration, without ego. When the prosecutor asked why Maddox Group had withdrawn from certain legacy operations, Roman looked once toward Avery. Then he said, "Because some inheritances are not worth keeping." The words moved through the courtroom quietly. Avery looked down at her hands. His ring caught the light. Roman reorganized the company in ways that made old men furious. Sloan took over legitimate import and export because she had a talent for terrifying executives without raising her voice. Roman built a private security infrastructure division that focused on cyber protection, disaster planning, and logistics risk for companies that did not ask where the old money had come from as long as the new contracts were clean. He did not announce the changes like redemption. He simply made them. Avery noticed that more. She accepted a position at a Chicago cybersecurity firm 3 months after the wedding. She kept Monroe professionally at first because she had built her resume under it, and because she refused to let Grant make her abandon her own work. Roman never asked her to change it. The first time she came home late from an emergency breach response, she found him asleep on the sofa with a laptop open on his chest, and dinner kept warm in the oven. On the kitchen counter sat a note. "You said not to wait up." I interpreted that creatively. Avery stood in the quiet apartment and smiled until her eyes burned. 8 months later, winter settled over Chicago like glass. Avery walked 2 blocks from the lake with their rescue dog, Blue, pulling at the leash with the confidence of a creature who believed every pigeon had insulted his bloodline. The morning was brutally cold. The sky was clear. Bare trees lined the street, their branches black against the pale light. Blue lunged toward a paper bag skittering near the curb. "No," Avery said. Blue ignored philosophy and pursued the bag. A shop owner, sweeping salt from his doorway, looked up. "Morning, Mrs. Maddox." Avery smiled. "Morning, Mr. Bell." He scratched Blue behind the ears. "Cold one today." "It is." She walked on Blue, trotting ahead as if he owned the block. Once bare trees had made Avery think of loss. Empty branches. Stripped life. Things that survived because they had no choice. Now she saw something else. Stillness that was not surrender. Roots holding under frozen ground. She reached their building, rode the slow elevator to the 8th floor, and opened the apartment door. Butter, coffee, and eggs warmed the entryway. Blue shot inside. Roman stood at the stove in sweatpants and nothing else, hair-damp, phone pressed between his shoulder and ear while he moved eggs around a pan. "No," he said into the phone. "Maddox Group does not handle that work anymore. Sloan runs logistics. I run security infrastructure. If you want the old answer, you called 8 months too late." He listened, then smiled faintly. "No, that is not negotiable." He ended the call and set the phone down. Avery unclipped Blue's leash. Someone disappointed. Several people. "I am told it builds character." She crossed the kitchen and kissed his shoulder. He turned, caught her by the waist, and kissed her properly. Blue barked once, offended by the lack of breakfast attention. Roman pulled back. "Good walk." Blue threatened 3 pigeons and a bag. Strong start. Avery climbed onto the counter, which Roman hated only in theory, and stole a piece of toast from the plate beside him. His eyes narrowed. "Chairs exist. So does joy." He pointed the spatula at her. "That counter is marble. You married me. I am reminded daily." Her phone buzzed. She picked it up, read the message, and went still. Roman noticed instantly. "What is it?" Avery read it again. Then she looked up. The promotion went through. Roman turned off the stove. "Director." She nodded. For a second, he just looked at her. Then he stepped between her knees and took her face in both hands. "I am proud of you." The words were simple. No performance. No surprise that she had earned it. No shadow of his name claiming credit. Avery's chest tightened. "Thank you. We are celebrating tonight. I have calls. They can suffer. Roman. My wife conquered corporate America before breakfast. I am required to become unreasonable." She laughed, and he kissed her again, smiling against her mouth. Blue barked louder. Roman sighed. "He is jealous. He is hungry. Same thing in this family." Avery looked past Roman toward the kitchen window. If she leaned slightly right, she could see the lake between the buildings, steel blue under the winter sun. Her life was not the one she had imagined in Charleston. It was not soft in the way she had once begged the world to become. There were hearings, old enemies, business calls that still made Roman's voice go cold, and mornings when Avery woke from dreams of her father's house with her heart racing. But there was also this, blue at her feet, eggs cooling on a plate, Roman's hands warm at her waist, a job that was hers, a home whose door opened because she had chosen the key. Roman studied her face. "Where did you go?" She looked back at him. "Nowhere." His eyes softened. "That is new." Avery smiled. "Yes." He leaned closer, his mouth near her ear. "I like you here." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "I like being here." Outside, the winter trees stood bare against the Chicago sky. Once, Avery would have thought they looked lonely. Now she knew they were not empty. They were waiting, holding, living quietly beneath the cold until the season changed. Roman's arms closed around her. Avery stayed.